viewers, welcome dear PowerMinds to another 15 minutes of fascinating inspiration around the topics of personal growth. And today it is my great pleasure to welcome Dylis, my special guest, to the Power Minutes. Welcome to you.
Thank you for inviting me. So
It's a
glad to
pleasure.
be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And dear viewers, today we have chosen a really fascinating topic, which is uncovering your authentic voice. Speaking with an authentic, clear, and courageous voice is a basic human need to actually be heard, to relate to the other person, and to understand the other person. It's a basic fact of relational psychology. And yet, it is something that many of us struggle with because, and I say the keyword relational psychology, we are we are social beings. We tend to think before saying anything about the other person. So, dear viewers, I think you can all relate to that situation. Like, you want to say something, you want to truth tell to another person, and then you think, oh, before I say that, should I maybe not say that because the other person might think this? Or I think that is a situation many can relate to as well. You want to truth tell, but you think, oh, no, actually, I was told in my childhood or my culture actually tells me to hold back. It's better to hold back. Or you feel comfortable with the other person and you want to tell something with your true voice, but then you feel, I don't know how to say it because I don't want to hurt the other person. So these are situations that I struggled with in the past, and I think I will continue to struggle with because we are human beings. But just to tell you, dear viewers, this is what we want to talk about. And we said we're going to do a series of these live streams about that topic because we want to speak about communication and real life, right? But before we dive in, let's introduce ourselves. May I hand over to you so that you tell the viewers a bit about your background?
All right. I'm usually not good with like self-introduction, but my name is Dylis. I've been functioning under my alias, which is DeryaSefer. That was a name that I used when I was living in Turkey. So it's not like I'm using like a fake name or anything. I'm still the same person. I just have different names. Anyway, I'm a writer and a community architect. So, yep. And I'm very interested in... Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you.
Communication, because writing, communication, all these are related.
Yes, and we should tell why we met. We met actually on Medium. And may I just also take this opportunity to recommend your Medium blog? And also you have a YouTube channel, right? I found you there and you found me. We found each other there because we related to each other's topics. So I think both of us were actually coming across each other because we are thinking about that topic of how to actually communicate with your community in a true, authentic, true, courageous voice, right?
Right.
So that was the reason why we contacted each other. So this is why we're here. This is why we actually said, let's talk about this. And in terms of the writing, and I think you had a similar experience. It's actually quite, how can I call this? The writing can help us, so the blog writing that we both share, to actually formulate and practice your true authentic voice in such a way that you come across as, okay, this is what I actually wanted to say.
Oh yeah. For me, it's been really like a strange journey because I didn't really start writing regularly probably until 2022. And when I first started writing, I started on Medium and I was writing articles on philosophy, which was what the phase I was in when I was reading about and blah, blah, blah. That was my style of personal development. But as I was writing those articles, I felt like I was struggling because I didn't understand it then, but I was struggling because I wasn't really learning how to like express myself authentically. I was just literally like doing research on philosophy and then like what I think it means, but like still I was writing in a way where like I was in public school. And that wasn't really my style until I've eventually found a way to, it was something called the brain dump. It's more like just, writing whatever that's on your mind, me learning to be comfortable with writing in my speaking voice. For me, it's not speaking voice. Maybe
Yes.
for others, it's different. Like that's something that it took me like a whole year to go from writing like how I was told in school to writing closer to my own speaking voice.
Exactly.
So, yep.
I can relate to that because I had a similar process on my blog on Medium. It's similar.
I think a lot of women that I've spoken with, like women writer I've spoken with, have the same problem. I don't know if it's like more of a women thing to like, that we feel like we need to we struggle more with expressing ourselves. Maybe I don't know. Maybe that's just my perspective. I don't know, but that's how it's been for me in my own experience talking to other people.
Yeah, this is what I was relating to earlier in terms of like I myself came across that aha moment when I started writing on my blog, that I was actually learning about myself through the writing. I was like, why do I not say that? For example, I give you an example. I was like writing a paragraph and then kind of finding myself, no, you can't say that. And I was like, why can't I say that? It was an inner dialogue, And I was like, why can't I say that? So I went a bit deeper in terms of challenging myself. Why should I not say that? Is there anything politically not correct, or what is the problem? So this is where the societal or cultural or educational or whatever my background is come in that kind of inner voice that tells you can't possibly write that. And it was not even a revolutionary thing. It was as you said, my true authentic speaking voice. And it took me a long time before I was kind of like, yes, you write it down, it's me. So there's something there. And I think I call it, this is the societal pressure that we all feel. It comes from upbringing, from our culture. Then maybe there's something also to it. I'm thinking about that a lot. Women in our kind of generation have been told a lot when we grew up, no, it's better to hold back. I mean, I experienced that personally. It's better as a woman to smile and hold back and not say your true opinion, in some extreme cases, rather than actually writing it down or saying it,
Right.
So, and that kicked in for me. And it took me a long time until I actually dared to do it, let alone to say it,
I definitely found it like through the months I struggled, like really struggle on trying to figure out how to like, I didn't even know I was trying to write in my own authentic voice. What happened was that I noticed other content creators that are really comfortable with, their opinion, pretty much like creators that are able to speak in front of camera without much scripting. I was really fascinated by that, but I wanted to be like them, but I couldn't figure out how. But eventually, if that's what it boils down to, was me being able to know how to draft, like, or brain dump, not self edit too much. It's very difficult. I mean, it took me months to do that. Like, you wouldn't think that it would be difficult to just like say what do we mean.
This is exactly the dilemma, isn't it? You think, no, it's so easy. You just write down what you think, but then it is difficult because we tend to then edit, and there's this inner dialogue going on in terms of what we can say, what we shouldn't say, and what we have heard maybe way back at school, and something kicks in to the point. I was actually with another great invitee on my channel. I was actually doing a book review on a book that helped me in that process, which was, the book is called The Alter Ego. And the alter ego is something that helped me to overcome that barrier. I actually invented another, not a version of myself, but like a person. And whenever that inner dialogue started, I said, that's Petrushka again. I called her Petrushka. It's a person that is giving me all the different whatever limits there are that I have experienced in my life, and that is always contradicting myself, because it comes from ourselves. It's not something, there's no person saying you can't write this.
Right. What you've just said like kind of reminded me of like IFS. I've been kind of looking into IFS and working on it, like how like sometimes we can like label our parts that way we know, who's speaking. Like for your case, you named that part, I guess it was the inner critic. You named it Patricia.
The inner critic, exactly.
So yeah, that's very interesting. That's brilliant.
I gave her a name. I had to single her out because it's something. And I also read other authors on Medium it's this negative voice that we all have. We just have to be brave enough to admit it. We have that negative voice. It comes from ourselves because maybe the other people wouldn't even think about that. And it's about the relation to others and what we might have lived through in the past. And this negative voice, this is why I gave her a name. And I'm like, she is doing that again. And so I can kind of try to, with humor, try to overcome it and say, okay, let's just forget about Petrushka. Let's just write, and it's about my future life and not about the past,
Right.
And so, yeah.
Another thing that comes up for me, like as I'm drafting, or sometimes just like aimlessly writing, like I call it aimlessly writing because like when I run into like writer's block, which I hate using that word, I just switch myself into the mode of aimlessly writing. That way there's no expectation. It just makes it a
Yes.
bit easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's a nice one as well, yeah.
Another thing that I noticed that when I write sometimes is that there are like actually conflicting voices that comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of makes my writing process, it could be more difficult or more fun depending on how we look at it, but it's just like having conflicting voices sometimes gives me like new ideas actually once I actually get over and write everything out and let whatever, if it's conflicting on paper, let it be conflicting. And
Good.
then during the editing phase, like that's when I throw stuff out or utilize or expand on something. So I don't know.
That's
It's
true.
just
Actually, that process lets you discover things as well. It's actually that what I mean when I say that writing is therapeutic, because it helps us realize things that we wouldn't if we just think it and speak it. And so for me, the lesson in this whole writing as well is that it allows us to become more authentic speakers, because if we write it out beforehand, we have thought it through. It's kind of, for me, it's more ordered. And so when I now talk to you about it, it's more like in a structure, I guess, which in this case is positive, because if I want to relate to you, if I want to get to know your point of view, I have to be able to structure my thought process in a way that, because have you come across that people sometimes think that truth telling or like being your authentic self is kind of rambling on, and then it creates a problem with the other person, because the other person thinks, this person is just dumping her whatever she's going through, and it's not logic. I mean, logic in terms of it's not relatable for the other person. So this is where the relationship to the other comes in. And so I find writing is perfect for actually sorting out your ideas before you talk to somebody.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And that helps a lot.
I also feel like, like sometimes rambling might not be a good idea. I mean, might not be a good idea, might be a good idea, because it just literally depends on whoever we're talking to, right? Some people don't mind having another person rambling. Maybe they want to listen to another person's life story. Some people are just like, just get to the point.
Yeah,
so,
it depends on the situation, right? Yeah, there's no one best solution. That's true.
I think it's because there's not a single best solution. That's probably also affecting our not our understanding of authenticity. It affects our authenticity because sometimes we just don't know. We're not sure. Hey, I'm speaking with this person. Would this person be okay with me rambling, or do I need to focus the topic onto something? It just, there's also that there's always that level of uncertainty that probably causes our inner critic to arise.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, that level of uncertainty, and also this my big lesson in my life was so far that I sometimes hold back to truth tell or to speak my authentic voice, because I think, if I say that to this person, she or he might be feeling this is too much, or it's offensive. So I care more about the other person, and then I realize, why do I always hold back? And then the negative self-talk sets in again. And that is I don't want to evaluate it as positive or negative, but that's definitely something about relational psychology. It's not about me, myself, and I. It's about the other person. So it depends who you talk to as well in terms of your authentic voice. Mm-hmm. So talking to a community on Medium is completely different, because you actually feel, okay, so you are in a way exposing your thoughts, and you well, on that sense, it's different because you feel, okay, I'm actually opening up for criticism now. And that also creates an impact on how you want to tell things.
That's so true.
And that is
It's
also the fear of, well, again, might be a negative voice or might be also a positive voice. Depends.
I think I don't know if this is probably affected by, the philosophy and religion that I was trying to study, but like there's no my understanding in Buddhism is that there's no like fixed self, which makes
Mhm.
sense because like going back to the conversation we had before, like right before, we turn on the live cam. We
Hmm.
talked about how like, some days I want different foods. It's just, like what I crave, that what I need at that moment. So I feel like it's the
Oh, that
same
is
for
so interesting.
authenticity, maybe.
Sorry to interrupt you, but this is what Buddhist philosophy says about, I mean, how we feel, how do we define ourselves, that it's not fixed, that it's not static, that
The
it's,
state of
how would
self
that
is.
philosophy describe like the sense of self? Does it exist even? Is there a word for it?
I think a lot of times, like, I'm not a Buddhist scholar or anything. It's just, something I kind of touched on. But my understanding is that there's not a fixed sense of
Hmm.
self. So that means that just moment to like just momentary. Like we may feel like we may feel like a certain way now. We may not feel a certain way the next moment. Like it could probably happen very microscopically that we don't notice until we look back. Like if we journal or
Yes.
something, then we
Ah,
can see
that's
the
nice. Yeah.
the patterns. So I mean that's something that's still like kind of stuck with me because I can see that change in me. The more
Hmm.
I observe, the more I'm like, hey, like I I don't feel the same way as like an hour ago. So whatever that comes out, like whatever that output is probably going to be different because I'm a different person than say even just 30 seconds ago, like in a
Yes.
microscopic sense. So for
Yes.
me, maybe I'm just trying to like complicate the whole authenticity thing, but like it's kind of like an
Oh, but that's
unknown to
interesting.
me. Yeah.
It's very interesting because actually, this is, when we talk about the authentic voice, actually, it's nice because it's completely challenges the idea that there's one authentic voice. There might be completely different authentic voices of ourselves depending on the situation, as we said, depending on the relationship we have with the other, depending on what we want to actually do, and also the time notion, because life is complete becoming. I was also studying a different stream of, but also philosophy, but different stream where they talk a lot about becoming. Life is constantly in becoming. As you said, the micro changes of every minute create whatever is authentic in that moment, but then tomorrow it's completely different, and we have to accept that. And so I think in the Western culture, there's a lot about this. Oh, you are a professional. What can we choose? A car mechanic. So your identity is this, and the other because you're a car mechanic. And that is for me the exact opposite, because we tend to think, okay, authenticity means you are a static self, something that is over time always the same.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. Like, I mean, like we like to think that way because it might make things less complicated. Like to
Mhm.
think that, hey, this is my authentic self, this is how I am. But from, what I've just talked about, like I think authentic self is just whatever that naturally arises in the moment without being like rude. Obviously, there's still like the relational aspect that we don't want to be
The
so
relation, yeah,
real
exactly.
that we like, oh, I'm not feeling it today, so I'm going to flip out, like not like
That's a very
that.
important point, because the truth telling is always about also how to respect the other. Yeah. In terms of that is where communication comes in, and I see that the time has already, time is so quick, and it's such a great pleasure. But let us finish that train of thought. It's actually the authentic voice, and talking authentically in that moment with the other, telling the truth, is also about respecting the other, learning how to communicate it in such a way, or even with the audience or medium or on any other, like now YouTube, in such a way that the other one is feeling respected and can actually respect the difference in thought. So, for example, if I say, I completely disagree with Buddhist philosophy, well, you will probably not do another live stream with me.
Right.
And
Or we
so,
can
how do
agree
I
to
say it?
disagree and be sure and like actually learn from each other, because what's a better way to learn like than challenges? It's just
Exactly.
it's an art, right?
Shall we do in the
communicating.
next live stream? We could do something on how to practice that respect for difference, because that is what it's about the learning as well. To say, okay, I'm learning something new. I respect it. It's different to anything else that I have learned in the past, but I respect it first of all before judging it, you know?
I would really love it. I love the conversations that we've had so far. It's just
Me
it's
too.
stimulating. It's intellectually stimulating. It's also spiritual in a
It
way.
is,
So
definitely.
yes.
So shall we say goodbye to the viewers? And then, so dear viewers, hang in on there. We do another one
Yes, we
on the
will.
topic of communication. And thank you for tuning in, and see you next time. We will announce it obviously on YouTube when the next one will take place. Bye.
Bye.